Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Season Ticket Holders. I'm your host, Dane Lillingstone, and I have a new and very special guest for today. He runs Bunnies TV. He's an all-round South tragic, as you might be able to see, and he's played 101 first-grade games for the Rabbitohs and Bulldogs, but I think it's pretty clear which team his heart still sides with. Steve Mavin, mate, how are you going?
G'day, Dane. I'm good, thanks, mate. Yes, I do bleed red and green. South Sydney till I die, all of that stuff. Prior to the league. And yeah, going good, mate. Although the club at the moment, not so good.
I know, mate. And we are going to get straight into that. We are going to build into what's gone wrong, looking ahead to the season and that type of thing. But firstly, for any new guests that I do get on the podcast, I like to just start with you telling us a little bit about who you are, why you love the sport of rugby league, and why you love those great South Sydney Rabbitohs.
Okay. Yeah, well, I grew up in South Sydney, in Botany. Played for the Botany Rams, and my mum and dad always went for the Rabbitohs. So me and my brother, we really had no choice. We followed the Rabbitohs, and yeah, just grew up going to watch the team play at Redfern Oval. And back in those days, we didn't have a whole lot of success. And then I eventually got selected to play for the Rabbitohs. My first game was in round 1 of 1987. We got smashed by Illawarra. And then, I went on, like I said, to play 89 games for the Bunnies and 12 at the Doggies. And, I'm 58. We've started, I'm 58 in January, actually. I'm adding another year. I'm 57. Started Bunnies TV as a podcast. And I know if you're listening to this on a podcast, you can listen to Bunnies TV as well. But then we evolved more into live streaming, content creation, interviews, a whole lot of stuff. But the bottom line is I really enjoy what I do. It's only a part-time thing for me. I've got a real job out at the wharfs at Botany there, night shifts and all that sort of stuff, rotating shift. But, my real passion is, taking photos, shooting videos, editing, presenting, a whole lot of stuff that you do on Bunnies TV. And I'm lucky because being a former player, they have allowed me that access to the club and the players. And I feel like that experience allows me to be able to speak on footy with a bit of authority too.
I was going to say, Movo, the reason this podcast even came about was because I'd always see you at the Bunnies presses and training out at Maroubra. My job at Fox Sports News, I'd always run into you, and then I got to know you a little bit, and then I said, well, you'd be the perfect person to jump on the podcast. So that all worked out, and you're doing pretty well with Bunnies TV, mate. I saw too. What do you got, about 30,000 on Facebook? You got about 10,000 plus on YouTube subscribers as well. Is that right?
Yeah, we have got a pretty big network, and I'm quite proud of that. And we've just hit 15,000 on Instagram, and TikTok's massive. We've got over 60,000 there, so that's a whole different demographic of sort of a younger audience there. But we're very proud of that. And very first podcast we did it on my phone and had no idea what we were doing. We just spoke, and from there it's just been a process that continues to this day of learning and refining and getting better. And it's good for the mind. It's enjoyable. It's challenging, and it keeps you active, and there's always something to learn, like I said, and it's very enjoyable.
You're killing it, mate. Those are some amazing numbers, so you should be really proud of that. Just on your career a bit too, 19 you were, is that right? Making your debut back then, and you were known for the swan dive. I did spend a little bit of time watching some highlights. You were featured in that first Tina Turner commercial, and now you see people like Reece Walsh doing it on the regular. What's that like? You were like the pioneer of doing that swan dive.
Yeah, well, back in the day, it was a bit of youthful exuberance, I suppose you could put it, or a bit of lair rising. But yeah, I used to do it back in my junior days. I had a bit of pace and just loved scoring tries all the time. So when I got into first grade, it was just a natural progression to do it again. And I did it the first time in our first win of the year in 87 when we beat the Panthers at Redfern. And I'd already scored one try. So the second time around, I thought, I may as well just do the dive. And they used that in the very first Tina Turner ad the next year. And and I used to get in trouble for it from the coach and the commentators that say, there's no place for that in rugby league. But like you said, now it's commonplace when they've taken the corner post out and everyone leaps and dives. So that's the story behind that.
was going to say too, like Reece Walsh still gets in trouble. So even in all that time, things haven't really changed, have they, mate? I don't think it's a coach killer. They still don't like to see it, do they?
No, that's right. Well, as long as you're scoring the tries, I don't think the coach is too unhappy.
Oh, mate, bit of flair. Mavo,
Yep.
don't kill me for what I'm about to ask you, but I did do my research. The 1987 elimination final. I'm sure you're sick to death of talking about it, but against the Raiders, can you just give us a little bit of insight? I don't want to spend too much time on it, but a little bit of insight. You had a few errors in that first half. You end up at the pub by the end of the game. Could you just tell us that story for us?
No worries. Well, I can't do an interview without avoiding that any time in my life. So, yeah, 87, like I said, was my first year. We lost our first 3 games, and like I said, Illawarra smashed us in the first game. But we started winning a few then, and I was actually leading try scorer for the Rabbits that year. We made the final. So my point of that is I helped us get there. And then in that game, infamous game, I had a bit of a shocker, or I had a not a bit of a shocker, and dropped some balls, and I was replaced by George Piggins, and I was pretty much distraught. I threw my jersey off and took off and ended up at the Cauliflower Hotel because I was an Alexandria Rovers junior. I ended up playing C and D grade there after botany, and so that was just a place that I thought I could go to. I walked in and the bloke goes, "What are you doing here? The game's still on," and but it is something I regret, and I was only a 19-year-old kid. As a teenager, you haven't got your head screwed on like it is now, a lot better, and so I would have liked to have stayed on. It was unfortunate, but it is what it is. I hadn't played wing much. I grew up as a front rower, actually, believe it or not. Well, you can sort of imagine I'm a big bloke, and I was a forward my whole life. And when I got to the Rabbitohs, I ended up at centre because we had a pretty good forward pack with the likes of Les Davidson, Ian Roberts, David Boyle, Michael Andrews. Pretty tough pack, they were pretty formidable back in the day. So because I was quick, like I said, I ended up playing centre every game that year for the Bunnies. And then towards the end of the year, my good mate Ross Harrington got injured, and he was our winger, and I ended up on the wing, which was a little bit foreign going from front row to centre to wing. I should have been able to handle it, which I didn't, and the rest is history. The Raiders were too good that day. Peter Jackson kicked me the ball, and for years and years I hated Peter Jackson. Thought he was the biggest a-hole in the world, but I finally met him one day down at the Maroubra Bay Hotel of all the places with Russell Fairfax, and it turns out he was the nicest bloke you'd ever meet. We sat down and had a beer, and I'm so glad I got to do that before he passed away. And he just said, "Mate, I kicked you the ball, you dropped it, so I just kicked it to you again." And there wasn't much more to it than that. And Jacko, he was my nemesis for so long, and then it's like the old saying, "Don't judge a book by its cover." Don't until you actually know or meet someone, don't let someone else tell you or have an impression until you find out for yourself.
Oh, well, I appreciate you telling me. I know you must be sick of it.
No, well, look, I've come to terms with it. It was a long time ago, 1987. Gee, it's nearly 40 years ago now, and at least I'm remembered for something, I suppose. And like you did say, a lot of people will do that when they speak to me. They'll first bring up the swan dives. And the diving, the highlights, the good stuff, all the tries, and then they'll mention the bad. So it's good that I've got something good to talk about, and it's not all bad. If it was just that memory, then it probably would be something I wouldn't be that keen on.
Yeah, I'm glad I had to buddy up a little bit. No, I'm sure. No, it's a great moment too. And now watching Reece Walsh, it's it brings back those memories too. Me being a newer generation fan and things like that. So that's an awesome thing to be remembered for. And you did, of course, go play 89 games for South. Were you number? I did write it down. 757 for the South.
757. It's not a 747. It's a 757. It's easy to remember.
757. There you go, mate. And I mean, just being an old boy for pretty much the most renowned, historic, famous rugby league club in the world. What's that like?
Oh, I'm very proud to say I played for the Rabbitohs. Yeah, anyone be stoked to play one game, and I played for a number of seasons. So yeah, and we've just got to Ashton Ward's Rabbitoh 12-11. So there's only been 1,211 people that have ever done it, and so I'm very proud to say that, and I could never take it away from me. In 1989. I played every game. In 1987, I played every game, and those both years we made the finals. 89 is another story where we were minor premiers, and it was a chance for us to redeem ourselves, and that didn't happen again. We were eliminated by the Raiders again. But At least I didn't go too bad in that game. I was marking Mal Meninga in the centres and didn't go as badly as the 87 version. But, the Raiders in that era it was the start of something pretty special. So in 87, they got beat by Manly in the grand final. And then in 89, they went on to beat the Tigers in that epic grand final when Steve Jackson scored that late try. But, yeah, very proud to say I did play. We've got a good South Players Association now run by blokes like Sean Garlick and Michael Andrews, where it's really good for our mental health. We go walking every Friday at the Heffron Centre at 6 in the morning, and we sit and have coffee after that, and we share a few stories. And our Players Association, we run one big function every year, and we sell tickets, tables, and we do the auctions, and we make money from that, and that pays for all the other events we have. We do about 6 things where we go to the footy. They'll get us a bus and we'll go to the footy and we'll have a few beers and some food and we'll go on the field and all that. We just had that a few weeks back. So, yeah, some good blokes, former Rabbitohs, and we're just trying to encourage more as they retire, like in the Sam Burgess era and some of the newer guys, to start coming along, because we don't want the same faces that just keep turning up all the time. But so, as we get along, we want to encourage more people. So if you're listening to this and you played for South and you're not on the email list, contact me on Bunnies TV and I'll sort you out. I'll get you on that list.
Good plug, Mavo. I like that. No, that's an awesome thing that you guys are doing there, mate. That's awesome to hear. Let's switch into current day season, how everything's gone. That Wayne Bennett homecoming, it hasn't gone to plan, has it? It's unfortunate. We know now Bunnies are currently bottom of the table. They are going to be involved in a wooden spoon bowl almost coming up. Just as an overall thing, if we just look at the season, the injury crisis has obviously been the big talking point. Where do you just see that it's all going wrong this year?
Well, I was having a look at it myself a couple of days ago, and if you take it back to 2021 when South finished third and got beat by the Panthers in the grand final, since that year, it's been on a downward spiral. So the next year, I think it coincided with losing Adam Reynolds too, which was looking like it was a poor decision now in hindsight. The beauty of hindsight, right? Mm. So from 2001, then we went to 7th, then we finished 9th, we missed the finals, then we finished 16th last year, and now we're sitting last for 3 years consecutive that we're going to miss the finals. And it is alarming, because being a long-suffering South fan and as a player and also as a supporter, we went through all those years, those 43 years when we couldn't do it. And, the heartache for me, I played in 2 final series when hopes were high and it didn't happen again. And then to finally get it in 2014 after the story of Russell Crowe taking over and Sam Burgess coming and then GI, and all of a sudden we're a top 4 team and the Rabbitohs are back. We're no longer the cellar dwellers. We're this powerhouse and we expect to be in the top 4. But like I said, something's happened and it's very hard to put your finger on. Could be injuries. There's a whole range of things, and some teams go through those highs and lows, but maybe the recruitment hasn't been at its best, and maybe there's some sort of curse at this new Heffron Centre we've moved to. But it's very hard to put your finger on, but it is unfortunate. And this year, we lost Cam Murray to start with, and he's our leader, our best player. So you're never going to be able to replace him. He's irreplaceable. But then it's just been sort of one disaster after the other, and when you haven't got all your best players on the field, you're not going to win games. And we're at the stage now where we're only 1 win ahead of the Titans and we play them in 2 weeks. And if we can't get our act together, we've lost 8 in a row. We might be playing for the wooden spoon and we might be struggling to win any more games of the remaining 6 we've got. But at least against the Sharks on Saturday, they didn't go too bad. They showed a bit of fighting spirit. We got our little man back that brings all the energy, Jai Gray. And, a bloke came in called Ryan Gray, who's not related to Jai, and he played pretty good too. He's a great defender and he's determined, and I sort of thought he might be a chance if he comes in, because I cover a lot of the pathways too, and I've sort of seen him over the last couple of years. I thought he might be all right in first grade, and if he gets a bit more confidence, you're Ryan Gray. He's not just a good defender; he can run the footy too. And the next man up mentality. Blokes like Hubner who work tirelessly in there. You never know. They might just be able to tough out a few wins and salvage something, a bit of pride for the rest of the season. That's hopefully that what happens anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say Wayne Bennett's never won one, right? So I
No.
think he'd never lost 8 in a row before the weekend either. So if we do
Mm.
lose again, then I think that's going to be his longest losing streak in his storied career as well. I do just want to touch on the injuries you mentioned on Cam Murray. Latrell Mitchell's obviously been out for big stints. Out with Cody Walker. Brandon Smith's had a terrible luck story coming from the Roosters and getting injured again on the weekend. Junior Totola is now gone. Jack Whiten's facing a suspension, not injury related. I know he's going to fight that. I did read about that as well. Buzz Rothfield came out and read a story. I don't know if you saw it, but basically saying that there needs to be some sort of investigation potentially because he reckons all these injuries are happening at training and their sports science and high performance needs to get looked at. Now, you actually watch training more than most people. Is there anything like that? Is there any truth you think to that at all that you've noticed about training methods or anything like that?
Well, you didn't even mention Stretch Campbell Graham, and he's another example of the bloke's been out with the sternum all year. Works works tirelessly to get back. Gets back and then he's suffered another string of injuries and he's gone again. So it's just been a horror show, the injuries. And I actually asked this question at the press conference last week because each week when I do the presses, so I'm going to be there tomorrow doing the same thing and you've got to come up with fresh questions to some of the same guys all the time. You know yourself, you're there. And I did ask a few of the boys, people are trying to blame the staff or the grass and this and that. Is it cursed? And I asked Junior Totola this and I asked Havili and they both said no. We don't know why. Nobody knows why. And I don't know. There's got to be a reason, like the great Tuvey, not Turvey. There's got to be an investigation. And but I don't know where they're going to find answers because, sometimes like Junior got hurt at Gosford. So you can't blame the Heffron Centre for that. And, some of the players are getting injured in the games. Some are getting injured at training. Yeah, I really haven't got an answer for that. But it's just unbelievable that we've got sort of double the amount of injuries that every other club has had to suffer. And I don't know. I don't know whether they need to examine the high performance and whether they need to train differently. I did hear they did a review of the Heffron Centre surface and it's spot on. And I always thought it was good because since it's been laid down, the grass was some high-tech T2 special grass. So you can't really blame that. It's no better than it's better than what they had at Redfern Oval. And Redfern Oval's pretty good too now from back in the old days when it was a mud bath. Now most of the modern surfaces are pretty good. So I don't think you can blame that. And that Heffron Centre, I've been on a couple of tours through there. It's like a hospital in there, You've got the best of everything in there. You've got great physios. You've got great staff. So the shout out to the staff there. They're all incredible people. So I feel a bit sorry that people are trying to say, what's going on? They're not getting the right care. Well, I think they are, And in there, you can go in there and it's like walking into, the casualty ward. You can go in a dry sauna and a wet sauna and you've got all the pools we can do laps. So, no stone has been left unturned as far as treatment at the Heffron Centre. So, I don't know. It's just sad to see. And, we lost Junior when he scored that try on Saturday night. And fans are just going, what the hell is going on here? Because he scored this try, next minute he's walking off in agony. And that was just sort of summed up the Bunnies fans' emotions, I think. And not only that, Whiten with the alleged shoulder charge, I don't know. I sort of thought his arm came away and that was supposed to be the prerequisite of what you got to do to not be a shoulder charge. It's not like he cocked his shoulder and just went in like that, like you could in the old days, back in the bad old days of the rough and tough stuff. But we shall see. I think that I've heard that he might be going to challenge it and it'll be interesting to see if he does. He might as well at this stage because there's not a whole lot to lose. An extra game here or there, 3 weeks if he wins or 3 weeks if he takes the early guilty plea or 4 if he doesn't. So I'd like to see him at least challenge it and see what happens. But we couldn't afford to lose anybody and we lose 2 of our best, most experienced players. So it's testing the depth of the lower grades and the New South Wales Cup aren't going too good either. So it's not like there's a lot of guys beating the door down to get spots, but some of them might just get them anyway because there's no one else left.
I was going to say, too, I can vouch for that Heffron Centre because it only opened, over a year ago? 2 seasons ago?
2 or 3, I think 3 years now they've been there, yeah.
And,
Two,
it's all...
two, three.
one of the best centres, you'd have to say, in the NRL as far as clubs go and the money they can put into it and the surface. I was surprised because I asked Wayne Bennett last week, is it the worst injury crisis he'd ever seen? And he sort of didn't say yes. I thought he was going to say yes for sure. He said, oh, the Dolphins last year. I think there was a Broncos team in 2017 that he said was worse. But geez, you'd have to think, especially after the weekend, maybe if you ask him again this week, the answer might be a little bit different because it is an absolutely shocking run. Now, you did speak about Adam Reynolds a little bit. I'm actually a Broncos guy, and I did want to talk to you about that. I know it's an easy sliding doors moment in hindsight and everything, but for what he can still do for the Broncos and the leadership that he would bring, was that just a big blunder by the club to let Reynolds go?
Well, I think so. And at the time, they just thought Lockie Ilias was going to develop into a star halfback, I think, and they had some other options there that, with Blake Taff and all of that, and it just sort of didn't work out. And, the decision was made and they have to live with it. But and I was one of the ones that was saying, oh, look, people that were jumping up and down and saying, they shouldn't have let Reno go. I said, look, let's just move on and let's deal with it. But, looking back now, like I said, we've just been on a downhill slide since we lost him. And we were spoilt with Reno, how good he was. He scored a try in the grand final. The story of Adam Reynolds has been unbelievable for this club. You talk about the Sam Burgesses and the GIs. Well, Reno was right there. He's one of the reasons we won that grand final. And just his game management and his attacking kicking game and his long kicking game. For a little fella, geez, he can boot the ball. And he can put up the bombs that are just that hard to catch. And he can put the ball on the winger's chest just by looking and seeing seeing him out the corner of his eye. So those are the things we're missing. And he can defend too. And he gets those little legs running and he can run too. So he can attack. And we just haven't had that since he's been gone. And then without that, even though Cody's had to carry a bit more of a load and hasn't been the same since. And, like I said, there's no point crying over spilt milk. We're not getting him back. We've just got to try and move on. And then, you might want to mention the Lewis Dodd thing. Well, Lewis, that's an unfortunate situation. And I feel a bit sorry for him. He hasn't been given much of an opportunity. He got a bit of a run the other night and he didn't go too bad, I thought. But I don't think he's any Adam Reynolds, and not many are. And so the search for the new or the next Reno will continue, I think. And until we get like a gun star half in that role, look at your Nathan Clearys and,
Jamal Fogarty.
Mitch Moses and that, you need an elite guy in that role to be a contender in this NRL competition. And we haven't got that at the moment, unfortunately. If you're watching this, Lewis, I know I'm bagging you, mate. I know it's just the situation it is. And, you might – hopefully they give you the rest of the season to get out there and prove that you can do the job. But, yeah, that's just my thoughts on that issue.
No, I was going to say, you see what Adam Reynolds, he obviously took the Broncos to 2023, the grand final. They needed that experienced kicking game because they were sort of in the situation, I guess, South are at now. They didn't have that on-field leader, that general. The kicking game, we all know how crucial is that long kicking game, which how many halfbacks in the NRL could put it on a dime? There's just not that many out there, is there? And you need one. No. And the whole Lewis Dodds situation, 650, 700,000 a year from the Super League, wasn't Wayne Bennett's choice. He's been on the outer all year. He's finally cracked his way in only because of this long injury run. And like you said, I thought the same thing. He was solid, but Wayne Bennett was still very tight to give him any sort of positive feedback. We asked him the questions last week at the press conference, and he didn't really want to publicly back him anyway. But maybe he will have an extended run in now. Do you like just what you've seen from him so far? I know it's been very limited opportunities. That was his first starting game at halfback, and he played off the bench in a 5/8, I think, once before that. Do you think there's potential there? It is that he could get some time to grow into the starting halfback for the team?
I hope so, yeah. I hope he grows in confidence. And I'd just like to see a bit more in attack in the running game and taking the line on and running the footy. And if you can do that, then, you can take yourself to that next level, But you can't be hesitant in that role, Like the great halfbacks, you think back, like I mentioned Turvey before by mistake trying to say Turvey. He'd run the footy all day back in my day. And Sterlo, he'd run the ball. Brandy's Alexander's, that you would need a good running halfback that's going to make a break for you, that's going to show and go straight through and can beat a bloke and offload, and there's blokes following him all day. So, I'd like to see him do that. Just back yourself. The kicking game's good. The left foot kicking game, we all saw it. He can kick long, and he made a couple of good tackles, saved a try. So it's just a matter of working on that other side of the game. Run the footy, Lewis. Run it. Just see the bit of space, off you go, and keep doing it. Because, I think it was only a couple of runs for not many metres the other night, and, that's not really the halfback's job, but you know what I'm saying. It's, like I said, some of those names I mentioned, like Alfie Langer, classic example, he didn't need much of a sniff for him to take the line on, and some of the tries he scored are like all time, so we need a halfback that's got that confidence to not only set up the play with your passes and your feet, but also lead by example and have a bit of a run too.
On the flip side, pretty tough because Cody Walker's had a shocking run himself with injuries. Looking ahead to next year, is he off contract at the end of next year? Wayne Bennett said he wants to keep him, or one more year, I think it is. Yeah. Where do you sort of see him? I know he's getting towards the end, but still, you need leaders like that in the team that you have at the moment, right? Like, you can't be letting Cody Walker go. Do you still think he's got another couple good seasons in him?
Well, look, pushing towards 36, it's getting up there, and the fact that he's been injured, I think, in 2 or 3 of his return games, Father Time catches up with everyone. I know all about it. But, yeah, look, I hope that he can get himself fit, and they've already said they're bringing him back, so I'm pretty sure he's going to be back. I don't know if they've announced it or what the deal is, but from what I can gather, they're going to do it. And, yeah, well, we need someone there in our halves, an experienced half, and a fit and well Cody Walker is great for the team. So, but he hasn't been fit and well this year, and we need to see that to get that confidence back in him. But yeah, I think his resume that he's put on for the club over the years since he started his career late speaks for itself. We all know what he can do. He's a great ball player. He's tough. He can defend. And he likes to run the footy too. So, hopefully we get to see that version of Cody Walker and not the one that's sitting on the bench, not doing anything for the team. We need the best version of Cody, and yeah, if we can get that back next year, and if we can get everyone back on deck, look out. But it's a big if, isn't it? Because we were hoping that would happen this year, and it didn't happen. And just quickly, Lockie Hubner, they signed him, and congrats to him. And he's a bloke that looked up to Cameron Murray his whole career, and he'd be stoked to be able to play alongside him. He already goes out there and gives you everything he's got. So if he can get all his teammates around him, and especially Cam, then he'll lift to another level too.
I was going to say, you can't get any worse next year, mate. For the injury crisis, I mean. Like, you can't get any worse than that. It's probably one of the all-time worst injury crisis I've ever seen. I was very surprised when Wayne said it wasn't the worst he'd seen too. And the other man I have to talk about, of course, is the superstar, Latrell Mitchell. I'm very high on Latrell. I love what he does for the club. I love what he does for the community. And he just says one of the other players to add to this list just hasn't not gone his way this year. Now, there is talk. Is he trying to get back for this season? Is that a chance?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, originally it was rumoured that he was gone for the season, and then I heard it was only 4 weeks. I'm not really sure where he's at with his recovery. It's a bit like with the Cam Murray situation. The fact that we can't make finals footy now, is there any reason to risk coming back other than avoiding the wooden spoon? And like, the wooden spoon's not the end of the world. I won one in 1990 with South. We were minor premiers in 89, like I mentioned, but I didn't mention that we ran dead last the very next year. So we went from the penthouse to the outhouse within 1 year. But yeah, I don't walk around kicking stones that I've got a wooden spoon in my trophy cabinet. They don't actually hand it out. Someone's got to finish last, and it happened to be us that year. We lost the bloke called Ian Roberts, who was one of the greatest of all time. So things like that can happen. But so with Latrell, I don't know. And with Cam, I don't know. With Cameron, if he's fit and he's worked hard, and he's the sort of guy that he wouldn't be ready to go if he wasn't ready to go. So he's done the hard work. And people are saying, should he be able to go on the Kangaroo Tour? I think, why not? It's a Kangaroo Tour. It's the Kangaroo Tour that's coming up. And I think I might have spoke to you about this the other day. Yeah, if he's fit to play, I would let him play, because he needs some footy under his belt, because he hasn't had any. And it's a Kangaroo Tour. They don't come along. There hasn't been one for 20-odd years, I think you said. And so, yes, he might come back late for South, but, I'd rather see him over there playing for the Kangaroos for Australia than anyone else, because that gives us something to cheer about for South, and I can report on it for Bunnies TV. Latrell, well, he might be in the same category. Well, there might be a few people that are dirty that if he all of a sudden gets himself right and he goes on a kangaroo tour, I don't know how that's going to work, but he's the World Cup starting centre. They won the World Cup with him and Jack in the centres. So I don't think Jack's a chance this anymore. But so yeah, interesting how it's going to work out. But I think more than likely I wouldn't bring them back for South because there's no real point now, and to risk further injury. Next season will roll into it. Next March, April, and we want everyone ready to go. So as far as Latrell goes, I don't know. I haven't had any inside information on that, and the club aren't really going to. They don't. They're not in the habit of just explaining everyone's full injury status. They just sparingly give you updates, and because they just like to keep their cards close to their chest in regards to that sometimes too.
Yeah, I think we spoke to Wayne, tried to get a few injury updates the other day, and he said 3-4 weeks for all of them, or something like that. He just put them all in the same thing.
Yeah.
So
he don't like to give too much away, does he, the old Wayne? He's a wily old fox, and even sometimes when I'm ask him about team changes, he'll say there's none, and then you see the team list and the hour before the game, and there's a few changes, and he's like, I'm not going to tell you unless I have to, sort of thing. But that's I think there's sometimes a bit of gamesmanship in that because you don't have to want to let the opposition know what your final lineup is a lot of the time, even though, from my point of view from Bunnies TV, my audience wants to know who's playing, how we're going to go. But from their point of view, it's like, no, you'll find out when they run out.
I think Wayne is like a box of chocolates, mate, because you never know what you're going to get. That's what I think with Wayne's a bit like that.
He is.
I actually was having this debate with someone in the office the other day, but you just touched on about the whole wooden spoon debate. So do you think if there is a Cam Murray there's a Brandon Smith, there's a Latrell Mitchell there, but they can only play the final game or two of the season, but you do have a chance of avoiding the spoon? This is the question. I was firmly of the belief that as a fan, I've never played like you, but I would never want to win the wooden spoon. But if there is the chance for them to come back just to avoid it, and that's all you've got to play, are you saying that you don't think you would just rather just sort of blood the young talent and not risk re-injury heading into next year? Is that where you sit?
Well, I know the Cheese wants to play against the Roosters because I heard him telling a few fans when they asked him how he's going. So I'm pretty sure he'd want to come back for that game. And, more than likely there's going to be implications on that game when that comes around in round 27. The very last game. Imagine if we have to win that to avoid the spoon. And if Brandon Smith's available, he was unlucky. He did all that work with his ACL and then he got hip dropped, and that's just another unlucky thing we've had this year. I mean, can you believe it? We get a bloke who's an international who's loved the Rabbitohs his whole life because he played for the Waiheke Rams who wear red and green over there in NZ. And he's a South fan, and it all comes together, and he gets back and he gets injured in the very first game back. Like, that's just... You couldn't write this injury misery into a script. It's just unbelievable. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure he wants to come back. So, yeah, maybe, look, if Cam Murray, Latrell Mitchell and the Cheese are all available for the Roosters game, then that can be sort of a finals game for us or something. That can be a last hurrah, at least if we can go out and compete against the Chooks. And the Chooks might need to beat us to make the 8 too. There's a flip side to that. So, yeah, that's going to be a big game. I think it's at Allianz. I'm not quite sure on that one. But, yeah, we should be going back there too. I'm a big fan of Allianz as opposed to Accor as well. I never really wanted to go out to Accor. I grew up, like I said, in the area, and this is our area, and we go to Redfern we went to the SFS, which wasn't too far away, but now going to Accor, it's out in the west, and it's not quite our heartland. I'd love to go back to Allianz because it's a rugby league stadium, whereas Accor is not. And because the government decided they're not going to refurb it, even more reason why we need to go to a stadium that gives the fans the full experience, like your Combanks Stadium. That's another great rugby league stadium. But anyway, I'm gone off on a tangent.
No, I was going to ask you about that because, I moved to Sydney 3 years ago from Queensland, and then to get the lay of the land for the Sydney NRL clubs took me a little bit of time. But then when I realised that you guys, who have your heartland in Redfern, who have your training base now in Maroubra, but you play out at Homebush, it just doesn't really make any sense. And then you've got this beautiful stadium with Allianz, and I know the Roosters are the head tenants and all that. I know Albanese, our Prime Minister, is a Rabbitohs fan, yet he hasn't seemed to have any pull because obviously they're locked into these corporate business contracts or whatever. You're hoping that eventually one day, right, surely they can't stay out there because when there's 80,000 there for an Origin game, it's beautiful. The atmosphere is amazing. Grand final day, they can't do it any better. But when you've got 15,000 on a Friday or a Thursday night for against Gold Coast Titans or some other club that just doesn't pull a big away crowd, it's just a graveyard and it doesn't create a good atmosphere for the people there or the ones on TV. I did go and watch the Broncos Rabbitohs there. Oh, probably like 2 months ago. Latrell won the game back of his hand. Like, it was great being there. It's still a nice atmosphere, but it can't compare to being close to your actual base, right? Like, what are they doing playing games out there?
Yeah, I know. And it's, for those that aren't aware of the new stadiums, it's the seats are built closer to the action, and it's like a cauldron, like the Suncorp, and Combank. So there's no matter where you sit, you're close to the action. You can enjoy the game. Whereas at Accor, if you're sitting at either end of the ground, there it's you might as well watch it on the big screen. And if you're going to watch it on the big screen, you might as well just watch it at home. That's what I think. But it just makes sense to come back to our area. Unfortunately, we can't get a deal done, and we're just going to keep pushing for it. We've got a light rail that comes from the juniors, and the juniors, as you can see behind me, they're a sponsor of Bunnies TV, one of the greatest clubs in the world.
Another good club.
That can be like a leagues club that we didn't have. We've lost our leagues club when we were at Redfern, and we haven't got a leagues club. And at least with that, we can have a sort of a fan place where they can meet and they can get on the light rail and they can go back there and can celebrate. And it just makes sense. And I know there's an argument for there's people that have from all over Sydney go to Accor, and some of them like it out there because it's easier for them to get to. But this is South Sydney, and it never sat well with me that our stadium was at West Sydney. But hopefully sanity prevails and we go back there sooner rather than later. That's my vote anyway. If you're watching this, Chris Menz, come on, mate. Please. I wish Albo could pull a few strings there, but I don't think he's got any pull in that argument because it's a state government, Stadiums Australia issue. And, we just we probably should never have re-signed that deal till 2030, which has come back to haunt us now. I hope we're not waiting till 2030 to go to Allianz because, that means we've got to put up with a lot of substandard viewing at our home ground as opposed to what we could be getting at Allianz.
I think it's a real shame, mate. And I've seen some interviews with the CEO, with the Premier, all that type of thing. It just doesn't look like anything's going to budge by the look of it. And you're right about that. Coming from Brisbane, growing up, going to Suncorp Stadium, the Cauldron, Lang Park, you can't really beat that atmosphere. And it's the closest thing Sydney has is Allianz. That's the closest thing that Sydney has to a stadium like that. It's a little bit small, like 45, 44,000, whatever it is, compared to 52. But that's not a big deal. Like, it is the stadium. It's central, close to the city, obviously way closer to the Rabbitohs heartland. And the fact that the Roosters can just be the only tenant there, it does seem a bit crazy that the NRL can't do more to try and make that happen, because it is a big shame, and I think fans are missing out. Let's try and get on to one good story. Alex Johnston. Now, he's only a handful of tries off becoming the all-time greatest NRL try scorer. The market is 212 by Ken Irvine, right? Yep. And he is it 5 away at latest count?
Yep. He's on 207, and he needs 5 to equal and 6 to break it. So he's going to equal it when he scores 5 and 6 to set a new mark of 213. So it's like AJ 213, hashtag AJ 213 or road to 213. Yeah, it's a great story. And when AJ came in back in 2014, he scored a try on debut. I think he scored a double the next week or something like that. He's a try-scoring machine, this bloke. He's had some good blokes around him. But for all the people that have sort of bagged him and said, anyone could have done that and there wasn't the corner post and half the tries he's got to fall over the line. Well, no. Haven't played the position. The good wingers, not saying I am one, they put themselves in position to score. And, they might make it look easy that they happen to be there when the ball hits them on the chest and they're diving over with no one to touch them. But you've still got to read the play. And he's done that 207 times in the NRL, AJ has, and that's special. And well, none of it's going to happen this year now, but it may well. He'll be the greatest try scorer of all time, and it's a huge achievement. He's spent some time as a Larperoos Panther, a South junior, And when he came in, there was a little bit of controversy because we got Lottie DeCurie at South, and we had one of the other greatest of all time try scorers, Nath Merritt. And AJ sort of unseated Nath, and Nath was sort of towards the end of his career. But it worked out well because AJ scored a try in the grand final and we won. And I'll never forget that game because I was at the game. I was sitting in the corner when GI scored and did the goanna. And, so he's been a try scorer since day one, and he's kept that up, scoring about 20-odd tries every year. He's had blokes like GI pass him the ball, and Trell Mitt and Cody and Renault kicking it to him. So he's had some good quality guys inside him, but like I said, those tries don't score themselves. And yes, sometimes that's been easy, but there's other times when he's had to play a bit of footy, and he's done it from fullback. He did it from fullback a couple of weeks ago. So, yeah, he's it's in 100 years they're going to be talking about this bloke as this great try scorer, and no one's going to be saying, but it was all a little bit easy, and Ken Irvine didn't have the corner post. It doesn't matter. It's just what the record books will show. And, he scored 5 tries in a game a couple of times and all this unbelievable stuff. But, so it is a good story, and it's good for Bunnies TV because it gives me something to report on. I keep updating each time it happens, and I've got a bit of a fan base in PNG now as a result of reporting on AJ because they love it over there, and they love him because he's a PNG heritage guy, and they love an AJ post over there, and they like to, spruik the fact that this guy is going to be the greatest of all time, and good on them because they should be proud. And that's another story that's going to be interesting when they bring a team in, and that decision's been made now, and there might be a few issues with security and this and that over there, but I've been over there. It's a beautiful country, and they do love rugby league. They're mad on the footy over there, and they might just get AJ. He's just re-signed with the club for a few years, but at the end of his career, he might go over there for that makes sense that will go over there and finish his career playing for the Commonwealth. We'll see.
Marquee signing, mate. You could get a pretty good guy even if he just gets the season out of him, hey? Be a big name over there.
Absolutely.
Great signing for them.
Maybe the old captain coach days.
Why not? Mavo, hard question. Do they win the Spoon this year?
Mate, look, I think we're a big chance because of all the injuries. So if I had to say, I think we will, but I hope we won't. And I did write about this because I write every week on the table position too, which allows me to analyse the table. And we're still in the mix with a few other teams. So there's the likes of St. George and the Eels, and us are still on 6 wins. So there's a few teams around the 6 wins, and the Titans are on 5. So there's a fair bit of footy left to play. So that doesn't, so we're a chance of not getting it as long as we can start winning a couple and get on the board, which is easier said than done after losing 8 in a row and we haven't got a full contingent. But yeah, it's not like we're, not a chance of not getting it because the Eels haven't been that good, even though they had a win. And, the Dragons are only on 6 wins. So looking at the wins, we're a chance. We just need to get a couple, and it might come down to beating the Titans in a couple of weeks, or maybe the Roosters in the last round. But, I'm not that confident we won't get it because it's been a disaster. Like, it's been as bad as it's ever been. And you can't compete when all your best players are sitting on the sideline. It's just the reality of the NRL. Everyone's got a good side. Even the Titans, they're stacked with talent. And they're finished, and they're running last. So, and they had a good win. Well, they beat the Warriors, didn't they?
Yeah, they did, over there.
Yeah, over there. And the Wars have had a good year. Look what Halasima did. What a try that was too. I did enjoy that.
Insane.
He's some sort of player, that kid. So they've got some talent too over there. And their Reggie's just put a big score on us over in NZ too. So the future's bright for them. And look, if we can't win it, which we can't now, I'd like to see the Wars do it. I don't know if they can because they've lost, Barnett and obviously the halfback, which is a big blow to them. But, up the Wars if the Bunnies can't do it in my book anyway.
was going to say, not that you want to hear it, but it is one of the most exciting wooden spoon battles I think we've seen in recent memory. You've got
Yeah,
Rabbitohs, Titans, Knights all on 16, then Eels, Tigers, Dragons all on 18, Cowboys
yeah,
just 1 point above on 19. So I don't
yeah.
think I've seen one. I mean, you've obviously had the Tigers on the shocking run that they've had at the bottom of the table, but to see that many teams all so close at the bottom, it's not a bad thing for the competition, I guess, either. The fact
Yeah,
that there is no one team that is that bad, they're really standing out. But
yeah.
yeah, look, and you got to say, you can only really sum it up season from hell, right? I mean, that's the only way you could really sum up the Rabbitohs season. And you'd have to think, once your troops are all back on deck, you're pushing back for finals next year. There's nothing you really even need to change. You just need a pre-season with fit players, right? That's all you need heading into next year.
That's true. But there is a push that we do need a few big boppers, a couple of extra forwards, and that's easier said than done because it's not like they're growing on trees and there's heaps of them around to go and grab. When we lost Big Tommy Burgess, that was a huge loss for us because the big fella for a decade was just charging through the middle, a big 130 kilo body taking us forward, and when you don't replace that, it's starting to look like we probably should have, and it's another. It gets back to recruitment, and I'm not saying I'd be any sort of gun recruiter, and I think our recruitment team has done the best they can under the circumstances. They might have pulled the wrong rein a few times, and let's just hope that they can turn that around. So, and we could do with a couple of big boppers now that we've got all these injuries, and now we've lost Junior Totola. But it is interesting that we can focus on the wooden spoon race as opposed to the top four. And the top four is quite interesting. The Raiders are looking great, and that's going to be a very interesting battle. The Panthers charge, I mean, no one's surprised. They were last, and now they're fifth, and they're a chance if the Bronx get beat by us, or whatever. There's a few. If the Wars, I meant to say that if the Wars lose a few more, I mean, they're 2 wins ahead of them. But if they keep stumbling and the Panthers keep rolling, then they could make the top four, and then make it 5 out of 5. Wouldn't be surprised if that happens at all. So there's a great talk about the top four and the top 8, but then there's also this interesting, like you said, I didn't mention the Knights before. They're in the mix for the spoon too, and
They definitely are.
they might they've had all the coaching dramas, and there's they've got their dramas too with injuries and all that sort of stuff, like a lot of teams have, but just not as bad as South. So yeah, season from hell. That's how we can sum it up. Yeah.
I think that's how I'd sum it up too, mate. And you're saying wise. I'm going Raiders this year. If my Bronx can't get up, there was a bad loss against the Eels, even though Parramatta did play very well on the weekend. I reckon it'd be good to see the Green Machine get there. I remember I was on the train there when 2018, 2019 against the Roosters. I was hoping they'd get up then. And then obviously the Bulldogs, I don't think anyone would fault them having a good run. They obviously had a really good win on the weekend. And then I think I'm happy not to see the Storm win. I think we can disagree on that. I think they've won enough. I'm happy. Broncos, Melbourne have a good rivalry too. I'm sick of seeing Melbourne win. They can get out. But and Panthers, honestly, I think they'll sneak into the top 4. I wouldn't be surprised if they keep on this run, which I don't see why not. They've had their Origin stars rested now. They're going to be tough to beat come September. And with that experience, even if they don't make the top 4, if we're ever going to break that premiership winner comes from outside the top 4, I think they're a team that could do it. So it's going to be very interesting, mate. And you did touch it off camera before, but we did mention UFC because we are a little bit of a UFC podcast as well. You said you've been getting into it a bit more now. I don't know if you watched on the weekend, Robbie Whittaker, our Aussie guy, went down, which is big shame for us. It was a very close decision against Rainier Ritter, which probably derails his title hopes. I thought he just lost a close one, almost knocked him out in the 3rd round. But you've been watching a bit more. You watched the main event, you were telling me, the other day between Max Holloway and Dustin Poirier. What got you into it, mate? A bit of a fan now.
Yeah, well, I've got the Amazon Fire Stick now, and got all the fights, and so it's I've come to appreciate the UFC a lot more, whereas I wasn't into it so much before. But it's just a complete contest, So you got the 3 5-minute rounds, and then there's no hiding in that 5 minutes, and you've got to be a complete fighter. So it's not you've got to be a good boxer, you've got to be a good grappler, you've got to be a bit of jiu-jitsu and karate, and it just all comes together in one contest. And it can be a bit brutal and bloody, and sometimes they end up on the ground too long. But yeah, I have come to love it, and I know you guys love it, and you report on it, and it's look, the story of UFC has been unbelievable. How it started with, I love the story at the start. When I spoke to you about this before, when they got a sumo wrestler, and it was like they should make a movie of this. They did do a 30 for 30, and it's like a sumo wrestler and a karate expert and a grappler and a boxer, and they all come in, and Gracie, the grappler, beat them all because he just got in there and choked them all out. And there was teeth flying out of the ring. They ran out of ambulances, and so it went from those humble beginnings to what it is now, which is a real juggernaut. And they do put on a great show, and I always love it. So because I'm not into it that much, what happens is when, say it's UFC 3, whatever it is up to, and I'm not quite aware of who it is, I'll get in there and I'll Google and I'll watch a bit of the stuff so I get a bit more of an appreciation of the prelims and then the main event. But yeah, that one the other day, I mean, they really left nothing out there. They rocked each other a couple of times, and it was sort of seesawed who you thought was going to win, and yeah, that was some sort of fight, and I know it worked out quite well because I was watching Tim Zoo, and Tim Zoo finished, and it worked out good. The main event hadn't even started. And I was like, oh, happy days, because I wasn't sure that had happened until I turned it over to the UFC. I thought, oh, this is beautiful. I've just watched the boxing, and now I get to watch the UFC. And I know you probably watched it as well. I don't know if you do much boxing, but the Gallen and SBW fight, that was interesting. I mean, I was quite surprised that Gal got the chocolates there. I mean, I thought Sonny Bill did enough to win. He did enough. He punished him enough with his clean punches, and he scored. I try and score, and you probably do the same. You're sitting there watching, and you fight yourself. So you're trying to think, who's winning this round? Is it a 10-9, and who scored the most blows? And I thought Sonny Bill got enough blows to win. But having said that, he was holding a lot, and he lost a point that cost him. And those holds, because I actually work with Brian, the cut man that's in Gal's corner. And those holds, they stopped Gal from scoring a lot, and so it was a tight one, and it's very hard to score boxing. But yeah, good luck to Gal. It was a gritty win. He hit got a lot of body shots in there, but yeah, it's a tough one to score in boxing. But yeah, the UFC, mate, I do love it, and I've seen your podcast now, and it's rugby league and the UFC. It's what most Aussie blokes love doing, and I used to go down I think you heard you say you go down the pub, and gives you a reason to go down and have a couple of beers. And I know the Banks Hotel here at Botany, they've always got it on, and it's always a good day down there. So sometimes I might just go down there, but if I'm just at home, I've got the big 85-inch 4K telly. I'll just put it on there and enjoy it at home or whatever. So yeah, I do enjoy the UFC, and it's good that you've got two great sports to talk about on your show.
Geez, 85 inches. I'll come to your house next time.
Yeah, well, I just thought we had the room now. I thought we might as well get a big one, and I'm glad we did, because it's like you're sitting at the cinema, and you got the sound bar and all that, and yeah, very good.
Mate, there's no better day than just going on a Sunday afternoon to your local, putting the UFC on. I did watch the Tim Zoo fight as well. And yeah, like you said, I agree with everything you said about the Gallen SVW fight. I think SVW kept his reach, kept his distance. Gallen was the more pure boxer, but that holding really just ruined the fight. I'm glad he got a point taken away. Yeah. And I think if we're looking at Justice was probably third, but SBW probably won on points. I think we can agree on that. I think if we were scoring it properly. So I wasn't upset about the decision. Plus, I bet on Gallen, so I was fine with that. But yeah, it was interesting. But I'm glad you're a USC fan, mate. Yeah, USC won. I think the sumo wrestler's teeth flew out of the cage, and one of them got lodged into the kickboxer's foot from memory. So that's just a little bit for you. And it's changed, obviously, very much. No more sumo wrestlers these days, which is good to see. But the UFC has come a long way to the fact that, we've just had our third Australian UFC champion, Jack Della Maddalena. So the way the sport has progressed, especially here in Australia, I've been to the few events here at Sydney at Kudos Bank Arena, put on a great show, exorbitant prices for their tickets if you ever do want to go in person. But the production value of a UFC, watching it live, I don't think there's anything that compares to it. I've been to grand final, state of origins, or everything. But the production they put into just the lights, the music, the whole show, unbeatable, mate. So if you do keep with it, go to a show one day. You might be in the nosebleeds because they do charge an arm and a leg, but I would definitely recommend getting out to one if you can.
It's like the Sphere when the boys went over to watch the Rabbitohs the first year, a couple of years ago. The tickets to go to the Sphere, you two were on at the Sphere. A mate of mine, Josh Kemp, he went there and he said it was like $800 or $900 to go, but it was like a once in a lifetime thing. So they just spent the money, and yeah. So yeah, I can understand. If it's something special, a special occasion, you don't mind,
Yeah, 100%. No, I love it, Mavo. Look, you've given me a lot of time to pick your brain on all thing Rabbitohs, your career, UFC. I do really appreciate your time. You do a great job there with Bunnies TV. That's awesome numbers that you're doing. Always see you out at training, so you do an amazing job, mate. So I'm sure the Rabbitohs fans out there, which I want to do is try and get someone from each club, and you were the who better for the South to bring you on. So I really appreciate your time, mate. I hope your Bunnies don't pick up that spoon. But you said it doesn't matter anyway, so even if they need it, it'll be all right. I don't think you'll get it next year, right?
Nah, well, that's it, mate. No, I've enjoyed it, mate. I'm happy to come on any time if you want to, we do another little look at the Rabbits or whatever. So, yeah, I'm happy to do it. And, go the Bunnies. 2026, we'll be back. Back bigger and better than ever.
I'll get you back maybe when Alex Johnston breaks the record, eh? Something like that. Some nice feel-good story.
There you go. But yeah, for sure. Lock that in.
Lovely, Mavo. Thank you very much for taking the time with season ticket holders. And thank you, everyone out there, for all your love and support and for following us. We are on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube. So please give us a follow. Take care. Hope you enjoyed it. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.